You've been lied to about what she really wants. Not misled. Not slightly confused. Systematically programmed with a complete inversion of reality that has cost you years of your life chasing the wrong target. You optimized the resume. Built the business. Upgraded the car. Moved into the better neighborhood. Stacked the bank account. You structured your entire existence around becoming the kind of man women are supposed to choose. The kind of man her parents would approve of. The kind of man society tells her she should want. And you watched her choose differently. Not rationally. Not according to the spreadsheet you built in your mind where provider value equals attraction. You watched her respond to something you couldn't measure. Couldn't buy. Couldn't fake your way into. Something operating on a frequency you didn't even know existed. The man she couldn't stop thinking about didn't have your portfolio. Didn't have your stability. Didn't check the boxes you spent a decade perfecting. He had something else entirely. Something that bypasses her logical brain and speaks directly to the ancient machinery running beneath her awareness. You felt it but couldn't name it. That shift in the room when he walked in. The way her attention locked. The way her body language changed. Not dramatically. Subtly. But you noticed. And it burned because you did everything right according to the map you were given. You played by the rules. You became the safe choice. The smart choice. The choice that makes sense on paper. But her nervous system doesn't read paper. She told you she wanted security. Stability. Someone reliable. Someone who has his life together. And you believed her because those words matched the cultural script perfectly. Then she responded to chaos in an expensive suit. To uncertainty with a pulse. To risk that knew how to walk into a room like it owned the oxygen. This isn't about becoming reckless. This isn't about abandoning everything you've built to become some performative version of dangerous. That's not what's happening here and you know it. This is about understanding the three currencies that actually move the needle in female psychology. The three things that create attraction that doesn't fade when novelty wears off. That doesn't require constant escalation or performance or negotiation. Most men will never learn this because they're too invested in the comfortable lie. That if they just provide enough, she'll finally feel what they need her to feel. That attraction is logical. That it can be earned through resume optimization. It can't. You're speaking a language her nervous system stopped listening to before you even started. You're bringing proof to a courthouse that doesn't accept your type of evidence. Watch what happens when that man enters the room. The one who breaks every rule you were taught. He doesn't have the credentials. He isn't offering security. He might be objectively worse on paper than every other option available to her. And the air changes when he walks in. Her pupils dilate. Her breathing shifts. Her attention locks onto him like radar. Something in her wakes up that stays completely dormant around men who have everything except what he carries. There are three specific mechanisms creating that response. Three switches in female psychology that have nothing to do with how much you make. What you drive. What you can buy her. What you've accomplished. And the most dangerous one separates temporary interest from permanent obsession. It has nothing to do with how you treat her. Nothing to do with your communication skills or emotional availability or any of the self-help talking points you've been drowning in. It has everything to do with how you've built yourself when she isn't watching. You've seen him before and didn't understand what you were looking at. He's not the most impressive person in the space by conventional metrics. Not the richest. Not the most accomplished. Not carrying the biggest title or the cleanest track record. But he moves differently. There's a precision to his energy. A specific directionality you can feel even if you can't name it. He's not present in the room the way other men are present. Not absorbing the environment. Not seeking validation. Not calibrating to the social temperature. He's passing through on his way to somewhere else. And she cannot stop tracking him. This is the first currency. The one that matters more than your bank account. Your car. Your apartment. Everything you've been told constitutes value in the sexual marketplace. Vectored momentum. Not wealth. Not accomplishment. Not what you've already done. The active, visible, ongoing process of becoming something that doesn't exist yet. A man with money sends one message to her unconscious. I have arrived. I am complete. I am a finished product you can evaluate. A man with direction sends a completely different signal. I am in the middle of building something that will not wait for you or anyone else. I am incomplete by design. I am dangerous because I'm still becoming. The first is a period at the end of a sentence. The second is an open door she cannot stop herself from walking through. David Buss spent years documenting mate selection across 37 different cultures. Different languages. Different economies. Different social structures. The pattern held everywhere without exception. Women consistently ranked ambition and industriousness above accumulated resources as attraction signals. Not what you have. What you're actively doing. The forward motion itself. The evidence of drive that exists independent of outcome. Jordan Peterson frames it more sharply. Women aren't attracted to men who have won. They're attracted to men navigating difficulty with visible competence. It's not the trophy. It's watching you earn it in real time. The performance under pressure. The evidence that you're capable of moving through resistance without collapsing. A rich man who has stopped fighting is already decaying. She can feel the stagnation before she can articulate it. His resources become wallpaper. Present. Functional. Completely invisible. Richard Francis Burton. Mid-1800s. One of the most accomplished men in Victorian England. He infiltrated Mecca in disguise. A crime punishable by immediate execution if discovered. He led expeditions into unmapped East Africa. Survived ambushes. Nearly died 3 separate times searching for the source of the Nile. Spoke 29 languages. And he was perpetually broke. No estate. No inheritance. No stable income. Living month to month. Mission to mission. Always at the edge of his own capacity. Isabel Arundel came from wealth and status. She had suitors with land. Titles. Guaranteed comfort. Everything Victorian society said a woman should want. Security. Respectability. A quiet, predictable life. She chose Burton. Waited years for him. Defied her family. Restructured her entire existence around a man who couldn't promise her a single stable month. She wrote this. I do not follow him. Because he protects me. I follow him because being near him is the only time I feel fully awake. Fully awake. Not secure. Not comfortable. Not provided for. Awake. This is the sensation money cannot manufacture. The electric feeling of being in proximity to a man actively building something that matters more to him than her approval. His mission becomes her aliveness. His direction becomes magnetic north. There's a specific moment every real relationship eventually reaches. It's not the first fight. Not the first time she cries. It's quieter and more consequential than either of those. It's the moment she tests whether you'll collapse. She doesn't plan the test. She doesn't know she's administering it. But somewhere beneath conscious awareness she's watching for one specific thing. When I bring the full weight of my emotional world into this room, will he add to it or hold it? Most men fail this test not through cruelty but through confusion. They try to fix what isn't broken. They offer logic to something asking for gravity. They suggest solutions to what is fundamentally a request to be received. And she walks away not feeling fixed. Feeling alone. This isn't about emotional availability in the way the internet teaches it. The last decade created a generation of men who are emotionally porous in a way that's exhausting instead of comforting. A porous container isn't safer than no container. It's worse. Everything leaks. When she breaks down and he breaks down with her, she now has two emergencies and no one holding the structure. What she needs isn't a man who cries with her. What she needs is a man who can receive her chaos without creating more chaos. Dr. Sue Johnson's research on emotional bonding identified one consistent thread in secure attachment. Not warmth alone. Not communication frequency. Not shared interests. Felt security. The internal experience of this. If I fall apart right now, he will not fall apart with me. Call it emotional tensile strength. The ability to receive force without deformation. To be genuinely moved by what she feels without buckling under the weight of it. Think about what this actually feels like to her. She's had the kind of day that happened to a stranger. Everything feels disproportionately heavy and she can't organize it into a coherent reason. She comes home. She talks. She doesn't want solutions. She doesn't want advice. She wants to feel the weight of what she's carrying land somewhere that doesn't break. If you fix, she feels dismissed. Managed. Reduced to a problem. If you collapse with her, she now has your pain to manage on top of her own. She becomes the container for both of you. And she'll do it. Women do this constantly. But every time it happens, something calcifies. A tiny hardening. A slow withdrawal of emotional openness. If you hold, she feels something no amount of money or grand gestures can manufacture. She feels held. Received. Structurally safe in a way that has nothing to do with bank accounts. Being genuinely held by someone with the structural capacity to receive her darkness without dissolving is one of the most addictive feelings a woman can experience. Because she's almost never felt it. Most men either flee or drown. June 1819. Simone Bolivar was mid-revolution. Executing one of history's most audacious military campaigns. Marching a half-starved army across the Andes through freezing altitudes. Fighting on multiple fronts. One execution order away from losing everything. He was exhausted. Sick. Operating at the absolute threshold of human capacity. Manuela Sáenz left a wealthy husband to follow him. An English merchant who offered her every material comfort available in Lima. A respectable life. Guaranteed safety. Everything a woman of her era was supposed to want. She left it for a man perpetually one battle from death. She wrote this. He does not solve my storms. He stands in them with me without becoming one. Without becoming one. She didn't need a man without storms. She needed a man who even inside his own battles could hold the shape of her chaos without adding to it. Here's the mechanism no one names correctly. Men think they lose women by becoming boring. That's not wrong, but it's not precise enough to be useful. Boring is the symptom. The disease runs deeper. They lose women by becoming fully readable. Think about a book. You can read it every night for months if the chapters keep opening new rooms. A book can be brilliant. Beautifully written. Deeply satisfying. And you'll abandon it the moment you feel you've reached the final page. Not because the quality dropped. Because the mystery closed. There's nothing left to discover. The map is complete. This is what happens in relationships. Not that men stop being interesting. It's that women feel they've mapped the territory. They know every reaction before it arrives. They can predict every response in every situation. They've seen every room in the building. And no one rereads a finished book. Not the same way. Esther Perel spent decades studying erotic desire inside long-term relationships. Her most consistent finding. Desire requires mystery. Not absence. Not games. The specific sensation that another person contains rooms you haven't entered yet. That there's interior territory you cannot access on demand. That you're always at some level still in the process of discovering who he is. The mistake men make is this. They interpret closeness as full disclosure. They believe loving her means giving her complete access to every thought, every insecurity, every process, every anxiety, every room in the building. They equate transparency with intimacy. And slowly, without cruelty, without drama, without a single bad day, she loses the thing that made her desperate for access in the first place. The hunger doesn't die because the food got worse. It dies because she's no longer uncertain about whether there's more. Marcus Aurelius, Emperor of Rome for 19 years. Also in private one of the most rigorous philosophical minds of the ancient world. He kept personal meditations. Thoughts he wrote for no one. Never intended to be read. Never performed for any audience. The interior of an interior. A private philosophical practice so deep that historians who discovered it centuries later described it as unlike anything else that survived from antiquity. He and his wife Faustina were together for 30 years. 13 children. By all historical accounts she never stopped being drawn to him. The most striking observation across accounts of their dynamic. Despite 30 years of proximity. Despite raising children together. Despite sharing every public and private ritual of Roman imperial life. Faustina consistently described Marcus as still approaching. She never felt she had reached him. Not because he was cold. Not because he was absent. Because he had cultivated an interior life so layered, so genuinely private that even someone who shared his world for 3 decades felt she was always in the process of discovering new territory. He didn't manufacture mystery. He was genuinely mysterious. He had worlds inside him that required lifetimes to explore. This is the distinction that separates men who sustain desire from men who perform it. Manufactured mystery is a game that collapses under scrutiny. Eventually she figures out the pattern. Eventually the withholding reveals itself as emptiness, not depth. But genuine interior depth. Actual interests that exist independently of the relationship. Actual intellectual commitments. Actual private architecture that continues whether she's watching or not. Is inexhaustible. You cannot map what keeps growing. The man who reads deeply and never tells you everything he's processing. The man who holds opinions he doesn't broadcast. The man who experiences grief privately before speaking about it if he speaks about it at all. The man who has a relationship with his own mind that doesn't require an audience or her approval to continue. That man is permanently interesting because she's never quite certain she has found the final page. So now you see it clearly. Direction. Containment. Retained unknowability. Not money. Not gifts. Not grand gestures deployed by men who believe love is a transaction and attraction is an invoice they can pay if they figure out the right amount. These 3 things when genuinely present in a man produce something money cannot replicate. Not because money is worthless. Because money is a signal for the thing. And what she's responding to at every level is the thing itself. She wants to know your energy has a destination. That you're building something with your life that existed before her and will continue regardless of her. She wants to know she can break in front of you without bringing the structure down on both of you. And she wants to know every day, even after decades, that she hasn't yet found the final room. The wealthiest men in the world are sitting in confusion right now, unable to understand why the woman they gave everything to is slowly turning into a stranger. They gave her the proof. They forgot to be the thing the proof was supposed to represent. Every woman you've ever lost didn't leave because you didn't give enough. She left because at some point you stopped becoming. You arrived. You settled into the landscape of her life like furniture. You became a constant she could filter out the way a mind learns to ignore any background signal that never changes. She didn't fall out of love with you. She fell out of aliveness. And the man who finally understands the difference between those 2 things The man who knows that love and aliveness are not the same currency will never again mistake one for the other. The wealthy men stay confused because they're still operating in the old framework. They're still trying to solve an attraction problem with a provision solution. They think this: I gave her everything. Why isn't it enough? Because you gave her everything except the three things that actually create the response you're looking for. You gave her safety but no direction to follow. You gave her resources but no structure to lean against. You gave her transparency but no mystery to explore. And she slowly, without malice, without drama, began looking elsewhere for the aliveness you stopped generating. Not consciously. Not with intent to betray. Her nervous system just stopped responding to you the way it used to. You became predictable. Mappable. Finished. And the human organism, especially the female organism wired for selectivity across millions of years of evolutionary pressure, does not maintain desire for what it has completely understood. Desire requires uncertainty. Not chaos. Not instability. The specific sensation that there is more to discover. That the person in front of you still contains unexplored depth. The man with direction generates this naturally because his trajectory is always unfolding. She's never certain where he'll be in 5 years because he's actively building it. The man with emotional structure generates this because he remains solid even when everything around him destabilizes. She never fully knows how deep his capacity goes until she tests it. The man with retained interiority generates this because he has a private relationship with his own mind. His own work. His own growth that she can sense but never fully access. These three things together create a gravitational field she cannot escape. Not because she's trapped. Because she doesn't want to leave. She's found something rare. Something most women search for their entire lives and never find. A man who makes her feel simultaneously safe and uncertain. Held and curious. Known and perpetually discovering. Here's what should follow you out of this. If love was never the full answer. If it was always about direction and structure and depth. What else have you been doing right that still isn't enough? That question doesn't have a clean answer. But it has a direction. And the direction is inward. Most men will feel this. Close the app. And go right back to giving her everything except the three things that actually matter. They'll buy the flowers. Plan the trip. Upgrade the ring. And wonder why she's still looking at him differently than she looks at you. Because he has what you're still refusing to build. Not a better job. Not a better car. A better structure. He knows where he's going and he's moving toward it whether she approves or not. He can hold her chaos without creating more. And he keeps entire rooms of himself private. Not out of secrecy. But because he has a life that exists independently of her gaze. You can learn this but not passively. Not by watching one more video and nodding along and changing nothing. The men who break through do the thing most men never do. They stop consuming and start executing. They take the framework and apply it. Test it. Refine it against reality until it becomes unconscious competence instead of intellectual understanding. You've been optimizing for security when her nervous system is scanning for aliveness. You've been bringing proof to a courthouse that doesn't accept your type of evidence. The man who understands this doesn't compete in the provider game. He operates in a completely different arena where the men with money can't follow because they've stopped becoming anything other than what they already are. The question worth sitting with is this. If everything you've built still isn't enough, what are you actually building it for? Not for her. She already told you it doesn't move the needle. For the image of success you were taught to chase. For the approval of people who won't be there when it matters. Or for the thing that actually creates the response you're looking for. The ongoing, visible, undeniable process of becoming something that has never existed before. That's the work. Not the next promotion. Not the next purchase. Not the next proof of value you think will finally make her see you differently. The architecture beneath all of it. The direction that gives your energy a target. The structure that lets you hold force without breaking. The depth that keeps you permanently undiscovered. Build that and you won't need to convince anyone of anything. She'll feel it before you say a word. And once she feels it, she'll spend the rest of her life trying to get closer to the source. Not because you withheld. Because you built something worth discovering. If you're ready to go deeper. If you want the unfiltered frameworks the algorithm won't allow here. The psychology that makes people uncomfortable because it's true. Hit subscribe right now. The men who are serious about transformation don't just watch. They commit. They take action. They execute. Stop consuming. Start executing. Subscribe now and let's build the structure that makes you irreplaceable.